So you love the property and you've decided to book in a second viewing? Well, make sure to check out this video to give you the top 10 things you should definitely do to make sure this property is right for you. Hi everyone, I'm Ugo Renze with Onyx Property Consultants in Keller Williams. Thank you so much for watching my YouTube channel. I'm excited to jump into this video. It's kind of a part 2 of tips for buyers. I recently put out a video about the 10 questions every buyer should be asking when they go to their viewings. And if you haven't seen that, make sure to click on the link below and we'll have a link in the description section as well. But this video is dedicated to if you've liked that property for the first viewing and decided to really now it's made the short list to come back, have a second viewing, what are the things that you should be doing? It's part of my YouTube channel, and if you are new, I hope that you like this video and you decide to subscribe because I put out weekly videos about the London property market as well as living in this fabulous city. So we check out things on culture, things to do, but definitely focus to helping buyers, sellers, renters, and landlords navigate the London property market. So let's dive in. If you've decided to book in for that second viewing, what are the top things you need to be doing at that second viewing to make sure you're doing your good, thorough due diligence and you don't really get caught with any surprises if you decide to make an offer? The first thing I would say is definitely test all the windows to confirm whether they are single or double glazing, which is a big thing in older properties. You want to make sure that you have a sense as to what type of window you're dealing with. Replacing windows can be very expensive, and double glazing provides for not just sound insulation but also heat insulation as well. So if you're buying an older property that has still single glazed windows, you definitely want to know that ahead of time, because that might be something you're going to have to factor in if you move into that house and the heat and the sound is not what you want it to be. It's going to be a budget item that you're definitely going to want to make sure you know about. Next on the list of things to consider when you're at that second viewing is asking about the heating system, the boiler system. Here they use something called combi boilers. So if properties have been refurbished over time, they use a combi boiler. It might be something that international buyers, I know certainly being from America, I was not very familiar with. So it's typically is a boiler unit that sits, say, in the kitchen or another room, and it feeds into the radiator, which is water-based heat. But you definitely want to know how old is that boiler system, has it had issues, you want to know the brand of the boiler, and obviously if then also in terms of like the water tank situation, is it sufficient to supply hot water to all the bathrooms and all the water sources in the house. Say you have a 4 or 5 bedroom flat and you have a tank that perhaps is really only sufficient to support 1 bathroom at a time. You might want to consider supplemental heating sources or secondary or larger tank to make sure that you have enough hot water if members of your family are taking showers at the same time. That then leads me on to the third suggestion, which is to actually test the taps, flush the toilets, make sure you check out the water pressure in the shower. Again, sometimes that might just be a simple fix of changing a shower head that might not be particularly efficient or effective, but it could be a bigger issue. I know that especially in properties that are 2 and 3 stories high, sometimes if there's a bathroom on that second floor, it might have a harder time getting that water pressure if the water system has to kind of push it up to get there. So again, you want to test the taps, flush all the toilets, make sure there's good pressure. I was recently working with one of my international buyers, and I went to preview a flat for her in Notting Hill. And do you know that when I turned on the bathroom tap, the actual draining would make gurgling noises coming up in the bathtub. So clearly there was some kind of issue, and I took a video and I made sure I sent it to my buyer because that's something you're definitely going to want to know and investigate more. It might not be a deal breaker, but you definitely don't want that kind of nasty surprise if you're, say, renting out a flat and every time, say, you flush the toilet, all of a sudden the whole house goes cold or makes funny noises in other rooms or something like that. Next tip I would definitely put forth is make sure you understand, is the property, say, a listed building or in a conservation area? The reason that's important is it might affect your ability to make further improvements down the road. If a property is grade 1 or 2 listed, you're definitely going to have restrictions on the facade, the type of work you can do. And I know in certain parts of central London, for example, for the wealthy, what was very popular for a while was going 1 or 2 levels subterranean to add things like a pool and extra internal space. Well, some of those councils are starting to ban those types of issues because it's just been so disruptive to many neighbors for so long. So they're not looking as favorably on it as they used to in the past. Whereas another area you might be looking at a property to do an extension or something like that. You definitely want to know what types of issues you might run into, and also have other neighbors or someone else in the community done those types of extensions or massive improvements or changes. Because if so, then obviously it suggests that you should be able to get that kind of planning permission pushed through, but you want to make sure if there's precedent to that. For a property that, say, has a porter, you're definitely going to want to ask, what are the hours of the porter? What services do they actually provide? For example, some porters might collect keys on your behalf, might collect your laundry, deliveries, and whatever else, but some porters might not. They might be more of a caretaker than anything else. So you definitely want to know what hours do the porter keep and what services do they actually provide. If you're buying a property that has other units in the building, you definitely want to know who's going to be living above or below you. You might want to ask, who are they? Do they have children? And what is the soundproofing like? Obviously, you just don't want a situation where you buy your dream property and you have somebody above you and the floors are just quite old and creaky and they have a toddler that's running up and down constantly. Again, might not be a deal breaker, but it's definitely something you're going to want to know. If you also are buying a property where you're below someone else, you might just want to know what that person's like, what hours they keep, because you might be the disruption to them, and you definitely don't want somebody banging on your door at all hours of the night asking you to keep it down. Obviously, you're going to want to know how old is the property. Older buildings might have older issues. They're still going to be structurally sound, but if a property has been around for hundreds of years, it might suggest other maintenance issues as opposed to a new build property. Now, if a property is actually a new build, it doesn't mean that you're going to escape with having no issues. We bought a property for someone in a new build development that ended up having serious window and water issues that took years to correct. So again, if you're in a communal space, you want to know what kind of insurance is supporting that, how old's the property, who's done the work, so that you don't have any nasty surprises coming up. If a property is a leasehold or share of freehold, you're going to want to know if there's a sinking fund that's been set up and is being funded. This is to typically address capital improvements or major reworks or refurbishments that might be happening to the building or communal spaces over time. Again, you don't want that nasty surprise of buying a flat and then next thing you know, being hit with a major refurbishment budget that you didn't know was coming, that had been approved by the other leaseholders or freeholders, and now it's just a matter of being the invoice for the amounts to start getting funded. So you definitely want to know if there's a sinking fund and has money be put into that sinking fund. And that actually leads to making sure you know who the building manager is and who has oversight of that building and how it's looked after. Again, I might have mentioned this in my last video, but definitely by now you might be wanting to ask, what price will the seller actually be willing to accept? Would they consider something below the asking price? Now, some estate agents might give you more information than you expected, or some, like myself, are likely to be very tight-lipped about it. But you definitely want to ask, because again, I've worked as a buying agent for many clients, and you'd be very surprised how much information an estate agent is willing to divulge if you actually ask. So make sure you do ask, what price would the seller be willing to sell at, or how low would they consider going in order to sell the property. And now my final tip at your second viewing is to make sure you actually walk the property at all hours of the day. I cannot stress to you how important this is. A place that looks great and lovely during the daytime might completely change at night. Is it a place you feel comfortable with? If it's a buy-to-let, is it a place your tenants are going to feel comfortable with? I manage a property for one of my clients that really does regret that perhaps he didn't have such a great sense of the property location when he first bought the property, and he put a lot of money into refurbishing it and fixing it up, but unfortunately it's challenged by the location where the property is actually situated. So you definitely want to make sure you get a sense of a property. In the early mornings, are a lot of people heading to work? Is there a lot of traffic and commute and issues like that? Midday, is it quiet, or is perhaps construction in the neighborhood that's going to cause a lot of noise disruptions? And definitely at night, to get a sense of safety, activity, vibrancy of the community in the early evening and late evening hours as well. So I hope this video has been helpful for you to give you the top 10 tips that you need to make sure to try to ask or conduct at that second viewing, so that you don't have any nasty surprises and you're fully informed if you decide that this property might be the right one for you. If you have any questions on this video, please make sure to leave me a comment. I'd love for you to share what you think is your top tip that you got from this video. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you like my videos. It helps me improve my rankings. I put out weekly videos and I'm working hard to create content that's relevant for you. So if there's any other topics you want to hear about or you like this video, make sure to hit the like button and to subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. See you soon. Thanks so much for watching. Make sure to check out the other videos on my YouTube channel where I feature the London property market and showing off all the fabulous things to do in this city. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. So that's Ugo Arense with Onyx Property Consultants and Keller Williams. Bye for now.